have control. Breach in 5, 4, 3.
What's up, guys? It's Uncle Freedom coming to you on another glorious and well-deserved day off. And today, we're going to talk about some uncomfortable truths around gunfights. So if that sounds fun and interesting to you, like and subscribe. Go ahead, tell a friend. The channel's growing. It's awesome. If you're looking to support the channel, take a look in the description box down below where you will find a link that goes to my link tree, where all of the affiliates of the channel exist. People like Primary Arms, Barely.com, Dark Angel Medical, Tyrant CNC, Dry Fire Mag. If you were going to do it anyway and you use those links, it helps the channel, and for that, I thank you. So, gunfight truths. How did we get here? Well, so I had, for those of you that haven't been following what's been going on, I've done a lot of the Minutemen layout series. Those have been a lot of fun to do. But recently I did a video on stockpiling ammunition. And that video was followed with kind of some uncomfortable truths and tips of stockpiling ammo. And the video that came out most recently was why Full Metal Jacket ain't it. And that one, as I'm filming this, it has not been released yet, so it should be a good time. But I had somebody reach out to me and talk to me about kind of stuff that happens in gunfights. So I figured this one would actually be a lot of fun. Number one, be a man. Carry a 45 instead of piddling 9mm. All right, again, we've covered this a lot on this channel, and that is the fact that if I took 4 identical ballistics gel blocks, ordnance gel, real shit, and I fired a 40, a 45, a 357 SIG, and a 9mm into it, and I removed the bullets, and I did not tell you which one made which hole, you can't tell me either. That's a fact. It's reality. People don't like that because it questions everything that you've come to know and love about ballistics. But it's just true. Technology is a real thing. The way that ammunition has evolved. Something as simple as this guy. So this is a Hornady 135 grain plus P critical duty. This has a flex lock tip. It is extremely good through barriers. I love that. I keep seeing that comment all the time. Full Metal Jacket for barrier performance, or just buy a really well-made hollow point and barrier performance. Anyway, you can't tell the difference between them. Now, I will preface that by saying that over the time, and everything that I've read, the research I've done, experiences of my own, experiences of other friends of mine, about 250 grains on board of a threat, and that threat ceases to be one. What do I mean by that? Well, this is 135 grains. So if I were to put 2 of these in a thread, I would have 270 grains, which exceeds the 100 or 250 grain limit. If you were shooting a 45, even if you're shooting hardball that's 230 grain, you still need at least 2 of those. 5.56, about 5. Now, there are some caveats to 5.56. This is a high velocity round that does weird stuff once it hits tissue. And if you're using a pretty decent round, that threat can happen a lot sooner than later. But about 250 grains on board as a common occurrence is what it takes to stop a threat from doing whatever it is, typically. So number 2, you don't need more ammo. Capacity doesn't matter at all. Most shootings are over in 3 rounds or less. That is true. Historically, crime data statistics for firearm-related defensive encounters with shootings, 3 rounds or less will typically stop a threat. Now, what did I just tell you? 250 grains on board of that threat is typically what it looks at to make things not be a threat anymore. That would be less than 3 rounds. However, if I was to tell you that the vast, overwhelming majority of malfunctions that happen in a firearm that are not induced by the shooter, because we're the number one cause of malfunctions, is actually the magazine. This guy, right? Magazines, we have to have them, and they are expendable, and they cause the vast majority of our malfunctions. How do you fix something that suddenly gives you an issue like that? You need another magazine. That's where this argument comes from, is you don't need a spare mag because it's over in 3 rounds or less. That I mean, the round count's accurate, but what happens if you double feed on like your second round? You got to strip that mag, and if you didn't have a spare mag, you may be forced to reinsert the mag that just caused that problem to begin with. Always carry a spare mag. It's cheap and easy insurance. Nobody's ever been mad they had more ammo. Number 3, I'm just gonna rack the slide. Bad guys, I'm just gonna rack the slide. I'm gonna draw this guy out. Good to go. That is BS. Here's the thing about defensive encounters and gunfights in general. Typically, the good people, the good guys involved, don't go first. Because if we go first, we're no longer the good guy. You have instigated a lethal threat encounter, which means you didn't go first. And if you did, you screwed up. Typically, in these encounters of any kind, way, shape, or form, I don't care. Go look at active self-protection. Go watch Donuts breakdowns. You will almost never, ever, 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 ever see the good guy go first. That is because good people are forming from a reactive stance no matter what. That is where you're coming from, which means that the clock on your gunfight has already started. So if I have to draw this out and do anything other than present out, acquire dot, place rounds into threat, preferably above 250 grains of rounds into the threat, I'm screwed up and I'm at a disadvantage. And while it may not seem like much, that is a lot of time in a gunfight. I mean, you're talking about things that are doing like 1,200 feet per second. That's a long time to rack that slide. That's dumb. Bad guys will always go first. You will always be behind the threat and power curve in a gunfight, no matter what. Right? If we're at war, if we're in open warfare in the streets, yeah, you're expecting a gunfight and we're acting as so. But in today's society, modern day and age, as you walk around, go to places like the mall and the movie theater, they go first. You will always be behind the power curve and you have to catch up. And we do that with really good fundamentals, good training, quality ammunition, and an accurate firearm. However, if I have to do that before I can engage, I am throwing myself behind even further for no apparent reason. I will preface it with this. If the reason you do not carry a round in the chamber is because you are uncomfortable with a round being loaded into a firearm at all times while you carry it, you need to train more. That's a you problem. This thing doesn't do what it wants to do without you manipulating it. That's a you problem. You should work on that. I'm telling you, get some good training, get some good classes, spend more time with the firearm. You will develop that confidence that will allow you to carry with a round in the chamber. Oh, I love this one. Red dots just slow you down. You're so much slower in a defensive encounter with a red dot. Really? Nobody's arguing the fact that red dots make you more accurate, right? Red dots help you to see the threat better and engage it because you have both eyes open. You're no longer aligning 3 different focal planes, which is rear sight, front sight, and threat. And not only are you doing that, you're aligning the front sight within the rear sight. Then you're making sure those sights are on the threat. Then you're coming back to the front sight, hard focusing whether you realize it or not. And then you're pulling the trigger. That's a lot of things when I could just be like, hey, look, the dot's where I need it to go. That's BS. That's total BS. That's a total myth. Red dots are, here's the thing, if you are really, really slow with a red dot, you need to do more training. If, even with a ton of training, your red dot skills are slower than your iron sight skills, you still need to do more training because they're not equal. Red dots are just as fast as iron sights. They're just more accurate. And if we move to distance, it's not even a question anymore. Which brings me to one of my favorite ones I've ever heard, which is, you will never see your sights in a defensive encounter. So you're telling me you fired a gun at something and never saw your sights, so you had no indication that you were on target, pointing at the right thing, anything, right? Like, do you realize how dumb that sounds? Like, how asinine that statement is when you really break it down? I will tell you, in a high-stress, high-threat environment, when you present out, this is one of the places where red dots really shine because I can see the dot, right? I can see the dot. I'm not having to work as hard. But saying I won't see those sights is really wrong. You may not realize you've seen the sights. And I'll kind of explain how this goes. So there's something known, $5 word inbound, of the proprioceptive index. Proprioceptive index means that if I turn around and I look at this right here and then I point at it, I am now pointing directly at the head of that thing. That is because my brain knows where my body parts are inside of spatial awareness. It can just index it to things it needs to index to. That's known as the proprioceptive index. So if I stare at what I want to hit and I bring the gun up, even if I'm not looking at my sights right now, I can drop down. My dot is dead center of what it is I'm pointing at. That is proprioceptive index. That's hand-eye coordination. That is your brain guiding your hands to where they need to be. Trust me, you're seeing your sights, you're seeing the dot, because if you didn't see those things and you pulled the trigger, that's going to be really, really, really hard to defend in court if you hit the wrong thing. You see them, you just don't realize it. There's this thing, this like weird thing that takes place, which is where you drive and you're all hopped up on adrenaline, you pull the trigger. And if I was to ask you, where was your sights at when you did it? Like, you got beamed to a spaceship in between the time when the pistol leveled out and the round got fired and you saw the sights again. Trust me, it takes place. You just have to train more to narrow the gap between them. Who does that? Chuck Pressberg, Press Check Consulting. I will try to find the video and leave a link. He actually discusses this very thing, and he performs it in a much more eloquent manner than I can. That's BS. That dude, yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really high functioning stuff. But you are seeing your sights. I promise you, you're not. And if you're really, really, really not seeing your sights, you're an idiot if you just pulled the trigger. Number 6, I carry 22 long rifle because it just bounces around all over the inside, just tears up everything. That is not how that works. There is some truth to the fact that a 22 long rifle could enter the cranial vault and bounce around inside of the cranial vault, mainly just skipping around like this and shredding things. That's a real thing. There have been stories and documented cases where a 22 long rifle went in and bounced off the backside of the rib cage and deflected down. But it's not pinballing around in your insides, just shredding everything. Because if that's what 22 long rifle did every time we fired it, nobody would carry anything but 22 long rifle, because that's a really cool side effect. But it's not true. Bullets do weird things when they impact a fluid medium, meaning the fact that people can, in fact, get shot in the shoulder and the bullet can be extracted from their hip. It takes place. We don't really know how it happens. It just happens. But the fact that the 22 is going to ricochet around like a pinball wizard all through your bad dude, never exiting and just turning his inside into something similar to ground beef, is total BS. That is crap. That is not how it works at all. So stop spreading that one, please. Number 7. I saw this one not long ago. If I'm in a gunfight and I'm engaged, keep your arms down by your side, because we need to protect our vitals, because this is a big hole and we need to protect our vitals if we're wearing a plate carrier. Okay. Here's the problem. If you have a bone structure in your arm dense enough to stop a projectile moving at Mach Jesus from entering into your thoracic cavity, you need to bottle that and sell it. For people that think that that's real and that's how it really works, I would question you to this. We shoot through magazines on bad dudes in combat, right? And bullets go through those magazines and enter the thoracic cavity and cause damage. We shoot through glass. We shoot through metal. Your body is not as dense as any of those things and doesn't do the damage to bullets that those things do. And they will continue moving after those things even and end a threat. Your arm does nothing. This is BS. Sorry, it is. Not going to keep your arms down so that you can protect your rib cage. If this was a fist fight or a knife fight, yeah, you might have a really logical explanation for that. But 1,200 feet per second doesn't care that you put your arms down. Fact. Number 8. I had this conversation the other day, and I still to this day have no idea. I was dumber after the conversation. But that is that I stagger my rounds in my magazine. And specifically, this gentleman mentioned to me that he carries the top 5 rounds in his magazine are hollow points. And the following 10, he had a Glock 19, are full metal jacket. Because in his mind, if he's shooting full metal jacket after those first 5 rounds, he's probably shooting through cover. Again, if we just bought like a really high quality hollow point, it goes through cover anyway. I've also spoke to a gentleman that he staggers his rounds 1 hollow point, 1 full metal jacket. Okay, and his logic to me was, I'll know which one it is and I'll be able to do that. I challenge you in any real string of fire with a loaded magazine, however you want to do it, and I put you under some stress. If I stopped you and said, which bullet are you on? You have no freaking idea, right? It's not how that works, man. You're not going to magic your way through all of this. And like loading different things, here's the other part of this. Like there's the simple fact that the odds of your full metal jacket being as accurate, hitting exactly where your defensive load is, probably not going to happen. You can get close, probably not going to happen. And in a defensive encounter, the time that I realized that my stuff's off by 2 inches is probably not in a gunfight. Just load defensive ammo. Carry that. For the love of God, don't stagger your rounds in a magazine. You're never going to know what round you're on unless you have some weird outside level of intelligence, like you're an alien and we haven't figured it out yet. You do not know what round you're on. And people miss. So first 5 rounds of that, I'm probably behind cover. What if you just missed the first 4 and now you're just punching little ice pick holes in a dude? Makes no sense. Number 9. I train to do a specific thing because that's how I'm comfortable. Here's the issue. If you run a Glock and I were to switch over to a 1911 or a 2011 where I have to defeat a safety every time I draw, I have to train that ability in to where it is subconscious, which is one of the reasons that trading out guns all the time is a bad idea. They have different operating systems. I have to train that at a level that doesn't even make sense to most people. Same thing, racking the slide. I would have to train this so many times to get it down to a level where it was just automaticity. There we go. It was just happened without me thinking about it. There was no conscious thought into what I had to do. That's wrong. Now, granted, here's the thing. If you carry a gun with an external safety and you train that specifically, good for you, right? Personally, for me, I don't like external safeties. There are 3 safeties in this pistol right here. I know people get mad because it doesn't have an external safety. Well, actually, it does. It's the little dingus inside of the trigger. There's also a firing pin safety. Yeah. I don't agree with that. You have to train your way through your platform itself for platform-specific problems. But when you start introducing your own problems, such as racking the slide, you have a problem. Because the odds of you doing it, pretty low. I have watched and witnessed people in classes draw a 1911 or a 2011 and they were not familiar with it. And under stressors, no more stressing than a timer going off and knowing it was a competition for speed, they came out and literally said, and it wouldn't go off. And you know why it wouldn't go off? Well, his safety was still on. And he was just hell-bent that he was going to mash his way through that safety. I've seen him with grip safeties not get it depressed all the way. And it caused the same kind of freaking problem. Under stress, your ability to do those little things. I'm not talking about fine motor function, right? Because that BS that you lose all fine motor function, you can't hit this slide stop to drop it. Well, guess what? This is a fine motor function, and I can do this under stress all day long. I can do this under stress. I can do that under stress. If you can't do those things under stress, that's a failure on you and your training regimen, not a failure of the firearm. However, implementing an extra step into what you're doing is a problem. Number 10. I love this one. I saw this one actually this morning. And that is hollow points are all a marketing gimmick. Full Metal Jacket has been putting down bad dudes for a long time. I could argue this in a very intelligent, very educated manner, or I could simply put it this way. Trains and ships got a lot of people from point A to point B, but there's a reason that we almost exclusively fly now. Because a better thing exists. Because technology improved and evolved. And when it improved and evolved, now if we do something like take a ship on a cruise or ride a train across the country, it's more for the experience, not because it's the best way to do it. Full Metal Jackets fall into that world. We have better options that exist that do something that even if they fail, give me the performance of the other one. But if they even do kind of what they're supposed to do, I get better performance than the baseline of Full Metal Jacket penetration. Again, we used to do a lot of things by ship and by train, and now we do a lot of things by truck, car, and plane. Better options exist. Don't be so dogmatic about the way it used to be that you forget that things change for the better sometimes. I see that a lot. Bonus point number 1. That light is just too bright. You're going to blind yourself and you're not going to be able to see and you're going to jack up your vision. If I pointed it at a white wall and I stared directly at the hot spot, yeah, you're pretty right. I would also be an idiot if I did that, because proper techniques such as umbrella lighting or baseboard lighting that illuminate a room and allow me to see and navigate, and then using that very bright light to put it into some dude's eyeballs so they can't freaking see me, helps me out. It's a force multiplication thing. Helps you. If you run around with it pointed at a bright wall and you stare at it, that's a you problem. That's a you being dumb problem. It's not a function of the light. The light's doing exactly what it's supposed to be. Your skill set, on the other hand, is just jacking you up, man. Like, don't be your own worst enemy. Take a class. Take a low light class. There's lots of great instructors out there. Bonus point number 2. But my stopping power. I carry 45 because it's got stopping power. Okay, so here we go. Here's the deal, man. Clint Smith said it best. Handguns put holes in people. Rifles put holes through people. Shotguns, right load, right distance, will physically remove a chunk of crap from your attacker and throw it on the floor. That is true. Handgun and rifle terminal ballistics are very different for the fact that rifles work a whole lot better. This is an incredibly inefficient means of winning a fight. Period. However, we do things like we create better technology in the round itself that allows that to expand, create a larger wound cavity, possibly doing more tissue damage, allowing you to have a more effective thing. And more importantly than anything, especially if we're not in an end of the world scenario, this thing doesn't keep trucking after it passes. It gets stopped by like the shirt on the back, which means that you've contained your damage to the thing that needed damage done to it and not sally behind the guy that needed damage done to it. There is no such thing as handgun stopping power. 44 Magnum, I can make this argument. Sure, maybe even 357 Magnum, possibly 10 mil depending on your barrel length. But for the most part, all of them make a hole in something. They're not going to make temporary stretch cavities that cause tearing damage to internal organs, tissues, or muscles. You're making a hole. A very consistent hole in size and dimension from caliber to caliber. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as stopping power with a handgun. It's not a thing. There is such thing as round placement. There is such thing as round technology that makes it do what it's supposed to do. But as a whole, you are not putting out the kind of oomph that needs to come from a handgun to create stopping power. Please stop saying it. Bonus point number 3. Actually, I'm going to give you this one first. I heard this when I had somebody argue this with me the other day, and I thought it was great. If you got a 50 cal, all the bullets got to do is pass close to him, and the shockwave coming off of that thing will just tear him up and kill him. That is, who made that up? Who invented that crap? Oh, good God. No, that is, woosah, that is not how these things work. In fact, Demolition Ranch years back did this test where he shot a 50 cal through a house of cards, and the whole house of cards stayed where they were, and the bullet just went through and hit what the hell it was supposed to. That's not how this stuff works. If you don't hit somebody with it, it doesn't just magically steal their soul when it passes by. And finally, bonus point number 3, and this will lead great into the mentality video that comes out after this one, and that is, I'm a sheepdog. I'll take out the threat. Me, the sheepdog. Well, do you have your medical? Sheepdog. Why? I ain't planning on losing. This thing is a tool. This is a tool that allows you to engage in the active part of a gunfight. In fact, if you don't have this tool, you are not in a gunfight. You are prey at that point. If we armed deer, come to think of it, if we armed deer, we could really shut up some politicians. Yep. Okay. Anyway, this is a required part of the equation. It's kind of like going to play baseball without a bat, right? You're going to do a whole lot worse if you don't have a bat when you get to the plate. Same thing. If you get into a gunfight, you're not going to do very well if you don't have a gun, because then it would just be, again, them hunting you as prey. But there's so much more that's involved in a gunfight, and so many people don't even realize it. Something as simple as packing gauze. or a tourniquet. This is a brand new one. This just came in. That's why it's not staged. Here's one that is staged. I like the orange ones. Having something that simple, these two items in your pocket, would allow you to save maybe your life, maybe somebody innocent's life, or maybe the dirtbag's life long enough for him to go to prison forever. I don't know. But thinking of a gunfight as this is the only option, this is just as important and probably more used than this will be any day. We spend thousands of dollars making these things awesome, but we won't spend $2.50 for some gauze so that people don't die around us. So there you go, guys. There is some uncomfortable truths about gunfighting, some fun anecdotal evidence in there. What's one you've heard? What's one that you've been told that still to this day just makes your eye twitch in the worst possible way? So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you found it informative and educational. Stay tuned, more to come. I appreciate you guys. Love you all for the support that you give me. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Till next time, I'll see you later.